Imagine waking up in the early hours of the morning, when everything is quiet in a way that almost feels unnatural, like the world hasn't fully started yet. The light from the sun is just beginning to spread across the sky, slowly illuminating everything outside your window. For a moment, nothing feels out of place. It's just another ordinary day, just another routine beginning exactly as expected. You walk toward the window, still waking up, your mind not fully alert yet, expecting to see the same streets, the same buildings, the same familiar patterns that define your everyday life. But as you look outside, something doesn't fit. There's a subtle movement that catches your attention, something that doesn't belong in the structure of the world you understand. At first, your brain tries to ignore it. It tries to categorize it as something normal, maybe a vehicle, maybe a shadow, maybe just your eyes adjusting to the light. But the longer you look, the more impossible it becomes to explain. Then it steps forward. A massive creature, far larger than anything that should exist in a modern city, moves into the light. His body is heavy, powerful, every step deliberate, every movement controlled. Its skin looks thick, almost like armor, reflecting the sunlight in a way that makes it feel both real and completely unreal at the same time. Its head moves slightly, scanning the environment, not with confusion, but with awareness, with presence. And in that moment, something shifts in your mind. Because the fear doesn't come from the creature itself. The fear comes from the realization that this is not unusual. This is not an accident, not an escape, not a rare event. This is normal. This is how the world has always been. This creature is not out of place, you are. This is Earth, but not the Earth you know. This is a world where dinosaurs never went extinct. A world where they continued to evolve, adapt, and dominate every environment for millions of years without interruption. A world where the balance of life never reset, never opened space for something new to take over. And that leads to a question that is far more unsettling than the image itself. If that world had become reality, would there ever have been space for us? Because everything about human existence, every city, every piece of technology, every moment of history, may depend entirely on one single event. One moment so precise, so fragile, that if it had gone differently by even the smallest margin, none of this would exist. That moment happened 66 million years ago. But what if it didn't? To understand what that alternate world would look like, you need to completely disconnect from the idea that ancient Earth was somehow incomplete or primitive. It wasn't. In many ways, it was just as complex and dynamic as the world we live in today, just built around a completely different foundation. 66 million years ago, Earth was already a highly developed system of life, refined over more than 160 million years of continuous evolution. That's an amount of time so vast that it's difficult to even comprehend. Entire ecosystems had formed, stabilized, and adapted in ways that made them incredibly efficient at sustaining life at every level. Dinosaurs were at the center of all of it. They weren't just one group of animals among many. They were the dominant force shaping the planet. Their presence influenced everything, from the structure of forests to the distribution of plant life, from the behavior of smaller species to the balance of entire ecosystems. Massive herbivores moved across landscapes in ways that physically altered the environment, consuming vegetation in huge quantities and creating open spaces that allowed other forms of life to exist. At the same time, predators evolved alongside them, each species finely tuned to its role. Some relied on raw strength, overwhelming their prey with size and power. Others were built for speed, capable of chasing down targets across long distances. And some may have relied on something more complex, coordination, awareness, possibly even early forms of group behavior that allowed them to hunt more efficiently. This was not a chaotic system. It was balanced. Every species existed within a network of relationships that had been refined over millions of years. Even the skies were part of this structure, filled with enormous flying reptiles that could travel vast distances with minimal effort, dominating aerial space in a way that has no true modern equivalent. Near rivers and coastlines, other ecosystems flourished, each one connected to the larger system in ways that maintained stability across the planet. Life was not struggling to survive. It was thriving, expanding, and continuously adapting. And most importantly, there is no evidence that this system was collapsing or heading toward extinction. Dinosaurs were not declining. They were not failing. They were successful on a scale that few groups of organisms have ever achieved, which makes what happened next even more significant, because nothing about their disappearance was inevitable. Far beyond Earth, moving silently through the emptiness of space, an asteroid was following a path that had been set long before life on Earth had reached its peak. It had no awareness, no intention, no purpose. It was simply a piece of rock, governed by gravity, moving along a trajectory shaped by forces that operate on a cosmic scale. And yet, that path would intersect with Earth at exactly the wrong moment. The asteroid itself was enormous, measuring over 10 kilometers in diameter. To put that into perspective, this was not just a large object. It was large enough to cause global consequences. Traveling at speeds exceeding tens of thousands of kilometers per hour, it carried an amount of kinetic energy that, upon impact, would be released all at once. But what makes this moment so important is not just the scale of the object, but the fragility of its path. Because space is vast, almost incomprehensibly vast, the likelihood of an object like this colliding with a planet is incredibly small. And even when trajectories align, tiny variations can change everything. A slight gravitational pull from another celestial body, a minor shift in velocity, an almost insignificant difference in angle. Any of these could have caused the asteroid to miss Earth entirely. If that had happened, nothing about life on Earth would have changed at that moment. There would have been no global catastrophe, no extinction event, no sudden reset of the evolutionary process. Everything would have continued exactly as it was. But it didn't miss. And that is the reason we are here. When the asteroid finally collided with Earth, it did not simply hit the surface. It unleashed a level of energy that is almost impossible to fully understand. The impact occurred in what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, and in a fraction of a second, everything in that region was vaporized. The heat generated by the collision was so intense that it ignited fires across vast distances, far beyond the immediate impact zone. Forests didn't just burn. They were consumed almost instantly, turning entire regions into massive infernos that spread rapidly across the landscape. The force of the collision also sent shockwaves through the Earth's crust, triggering earthquakes that were felt across the planet. These seismic waves disrupted the stability of land masses, contributing to further destruction far from the original site of impact. At the same time, the oceans responded violently. The impact displaced enormous amounts of water, creating tsunamis that traveled across entire ocean basins. These waves were not comparable to anything in recorded human history. They were massive, powerful, and capable of reshaping coastlines as they moved. But even all of this destruction, the fires, the earthquakes, the tsunamis, was only the beginning. Because the most significant effects of the impact were not immediate. They came after the immediate chaos of the impact, after the fires had begun to spread and the oceans had reacted violently, something much more devastating started to take shape. It wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive. It didn't happen in a single moment. It was slow, silent, and far more destructive than anything that came before. The sky began to change. Dust, ash, and debris thrown into the atmosphere during the impact didn't simply disappear. Instead, they spread across the planet, forming a dense layer high above the surface. This layer acted like a shield, blocking sunlight from reaching the Earth. At first, it may not have seemed like a big deal. A darker sky, slightly cooler temperatures. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the consequences became impossible to ignore. Sunlight is not just something that makes the world visible. It is the foundation of almost all life on Earth. Plants depend on it for photosynthesis, the process that allows them to produce energy. Without sunlight, that process stops. And when plants stop producing energy, they begin to die. This is where the true collapse begins. Because plants are not just another part of the ecosystem. They are the base of the entire food chain. When they disappear, everything above them begins to fall apart. Herbivores, which rely on plants for survival, start to starve. Their populations decline rapidly, and as they disappear, predators lose their source of food. One by one, entire species begin to vanish. The temperature continues to drop. The environment becomes more hostile. The balance that had existed for millions of years begins to break down completely. This is not a localized disaster. It is global. Every ecosystem, every continent, every ocean is affected in some way. And there is nothing any living creature can do to stop it. This period, often described as an impact winter, turns the planet into a place that is almost unrecognizable. A world without sunlight, without stability, without the conditions necessary to sustain the life that once dominated it. And in this new world, the dinosaurs cannot survive. It's easy to think of extinction as a kind of failure, as if the dinosaurs somehow weren't good enough to survive. But that idea couldn't be further from the truth. Dinosaurs were not weak. They were not poorly adapted. In fact, they were one of the most successful groups of organisms in the history of life on Earth. They had survived for over 160 million years, adapting to changes in climate, geography, and environment that would have wiped out less resilient species. They had evolved into countless forms, each one perfectly suited to its role within the ecosystem. But what they faced after the asteroid impact was not something evolution had prepared them for. The problem was not that they couldn't adapt. The problem was that they didn't have time. Evolution works over long periods, through gradual changes and slow adjustments. What happened after the impact was the opposite of that. It was sudden, extreme, and global. The conditions of the planet changed faster than any species could respond. Food sources disappeared. Temperatures dropped. Habitats were destroyed. And within a relatively short period of time, the dominant rulers of the planet were gone. But extinction does not just remove life. It creates space. And that space would be filled by something else. Now imagine going back to that exact moment. The asteroid is approaching Earth, moving along the same path at the same speed. Everything is the same. Until it isn't. This time, something changes. Maybe it's a slight shift in trajectory. Maybe it's the influence of another celestial body. Maybe it's just chance. But instead of colliding with Earth, the asteroid passes by. It continues through space, never making contact, never triggering the chain of events that would lead to global extinction. And just like that, everything changes. There is no explosion, no firestorms, no impact winter. The sky remains clear. The ecosystems remain intact. Life continues exactly as it was. At first, this might seem like nothing happened at all. The world looks the same. The same species exist, the same environments function, the same balance is maintained. But over time, the consequences of this non-event become enormous. Because without extinction, there is no reset. And without a reset, evolution follows a completely different path. In our timeline, the extinction of the dinosaurs opened the door for mammals to expand and diversify. It created opportunities that simply did not exist before. But in this alternate world, that door never opens. Dinosaurs remain dominant. They continue to occupy the top positions in the food chain, controlling land, air, and many aspects of the environment. Other groups of animals, including mammals, remain limited in their roles, unable to expand beyond the boundaries imposed by the presence of more powerful and established species. But evolution doesn't stop. It continues to operate, slowly shaping species over millions of years. Dinosaurs adapt to changes in climate, geography, and competition. They become more specialized, more efficient, more refined. Given enough time, entirely new forms of dinosaurs could emerge. Some might become even larger, pushing the limits of size and strength. Others might become smaller, faster, and more agile, adapting to specific niches within the environment. And some might begin to develop something even more interesting. When we think of intelligence, we often think of humans. But intelligence is not a single path. It can evolve in many different ways, depending on the environment and the needs of a species. Some dinosaurs already showed signs that suggest the potential for more complex behavior. Certain species had relatively large brain-to-body ratios, which can be an indicator of higher cognitive ability. Others may have hunted in groups, requiring some level of coordination and communication. Given another 66 million years of evolution, It's not unreasonable to imagine that some species could develop even higher levels of intelligence. Not human intelligence, necessarily. Not technology, cities, or language as we understand it. But something different. Something adapted to their world. Imagine predators that don't just rely on instinct, but on strategy. Creatures that can learn, adapt, and solve problems in ways that give them an advantage over others. Species that develop social structures, communication systems, and behaviors that allow them to dominate not just physically but cognitively. This would not be a human world. It would be something entirely new. In this alternate reality, mammals never get their chance. Before the extinction event, mammals already existed, but they were small and limited. They survived by avoiding attention, often living underground or being active at night. This lifestyle allowed them to coexist with dinosaurs without directly competing with them. But they were not dominant. And without the extinction of the dinosaurs, they likely never become dominant. They remain small, restricted to niches that do not put them in direct competition with larger, more powerful species. Their evolution continues, but within strict limits. They do not grow larger. They do not take over ecosystems. They do not develop into the diverse range of species that exist today. Most importantly, they do not evolve into humans. Because the conditions that allowed that process to happen, the space, the resources, the absence of dominant predators, never exist. If we move forward to the present day in this alternate timeline, the Earth would be almost unrecognizable to us. Not because it lacks life, but because it is full of a different kind of life. There are no cities, no roads, no artificial structures covering the planet. There is no industry, no technology, no global human presence shaping the environment. Instead, the Earth remains wild. Vast forests stretch across continents, uninterrupted by urban development. Massive animals move through these landscapes, shaping ecosystems in ways that feel both ancient and entirely unfamiliar. The skies are filled with large flying creatures, while the land is dominated by species that have continued to evolve for millions of years without interruption. This is not a world that is less advanced. It is simply advanced in a different way. In this world, ecosystems are not just influenced by dinosaurs, they are defined by them. Every interaction, every food chain, every environmental process is shaped by their presence. Large herbivores would continue to influence plant growth, controlling the distribution of vegetation across vast areas. Predators would regulate populations, maintaining balance within ecosystems. Smaller species would adapt to survive within this structure, evolving traits that allow them to avoid detection or exploit specific niches. Over millions of years, these systems would become incredibly refined, stable, efficient, and deeply interconnected. To an outside observer, this world might seem alien. But to the species living within it, it would be perfectly normal. If humans somehow existed in this world, survival would be incredibly difficult. We are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest. We do not have natural weapons like claws or sharp teeth. What makes us successful is our intelligence, our ability to cooperate, and our capacity to build tools and technology. But in a world dominated by dinosaurs, even those advantages might not be enough. Imagine trying to build civilization while constantly competing with creatures that have been evolving for millions of years to dominate their environment. Imagine living in a world where you are not at the top of the food chain, where danger is constant, and where survival requires constant awareness. It's possible humans could survive, but it's unlikely they would dominate. What makes this entire scenario so powerful is how much it depends on chance. The asteroid did not hit Earth because of a plan. It did not happen because it was meant to happen. It was the result of random motion, of physics playing out over millions of years. And yet, that random event changed everything. It reshaped the planet, altered the course of evolution, and created the conditions that allowed humans to exist. Without it, the world would be completely different. When you think about it, our entire existence may come down to a single moment in time. A moment that could have easily gone another way. If the asteroid had missed, there would be no humans, no history, no civilization, no version of you watching this video right now. The world would still exist. Life would still exist. But it would not be our world. And maybe the most unsettling thought of all is this. Somewhere in a different version of reality, it isn't.